Hey, welcome everybody to the Recruiting HR Roundtable. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm PJ Trudeau, and I'm so happy to have all of you here with us today, especially on a topic that has really been kind of plaguing all of us for quite some time now. Recruiting is always, at times, can be a challenge, but it's certainly something that I think is a big part of what we do anyway, but unfortunately now is taking up a significant amount more of our time on a day-to-day basis. The amazing Staffing Advisors has been gracious enough to do several roundtables with us. Bob Corlett and his team have been fantastic. Just to tell you a little bit about kind of what we'll do today is I'm recording the session so that I can follow up with a summary that'll have a recording of what we've talked about. Also, any resources that we discuss, please certainly feel free, as you've had resources and Staffing Advisors usually has plenty they can also share with us or direct us to their website where we can find them. Please share them in the Zoom chat. We want this to be an interactive session and give everybody an opportunity to be able to ask questions, but also to hopefully learn some things and also kind of share what you're doing that's working. Because what may be working for you, someone possibly hasn't thought of. So we would certainly love to hear that. Thank you everybody for all of the feedback that you've given us. I got quite a lot of feedback when people were responding about being able to attend today. So I was able to share that with the Staffing Advisors team. I'm going to turn it over now to Bob, who's just going to kind of go through a lot of the questions that you had to try to answer those. But as I said, please feel free to pop in as you have any questions. Bob?
Everybody, thanks for letting us back into your party. PJ had shared a stack of questions. So what we thought we'd do is just kind of go through the questions that were submitted in advance and then kind of open things up for your questions as we go. But please feel free, if there's anything we cover that you want to dig into in that moment, feel free to interrupt or chime in, or let's keep it as interactive as we can. Just by way of introduction, for those of you who haven't met our team, Brooke Lockhart leads our kind of behind the scenes work, dashboards and deliverables, and anything that looks like it was professionally done that we did was probably Brooke's team. Aileen leads our client engagement team, which is the kind of one voice to both our clients and the candidates. So she's got lots of insight into how candidates think about things in the current market, and has worked with lots of clients on, what would you guess, Aileen, 400 or 500 searches that you've completed at this point personally?
Oh gosh, I don't know. A lot.
We're hiding the fact that Margaret Stepanek is on this call by having her camera secretly turned off. Wait, Margaret's on a secure, undisclosed location. To keep people who find candidates, and we want to keep that a secret.
All right.
Nothing to do with me, making people use new technology all the time that doesn't always play well with Zoom. It has nothing to do with my technology choices. It's us keeping you a secret, Margaret. So with that said, we're going to just dive in with some of the questions PJ shared in advance, if that's okay. Anybody object to that agenda? All right. So Brooke, there was the first one had to do with school-related positions. Do you want to take that first one?
Sure. So when we looked at candidates for these types of positions, I think it was about intervention specialists.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you just start with the question and then do the answer?
Oh, sorry. So one of the positions that somebody in the group was trying to fill was intervention specialists or pre-K teachers, special education teachers, assistants, aides, those sorts of things that kind of follow the school year. And we've done some of those with some of our clients. And one of the things that we have found is that a lot of those candidates don't have a big online presence. So you're not going to find them on LinkedIn. You're not going to find them on a lot of the usual places you might look. So it does take a little bit more detailed work to kind of identify schools that might be similar and then look at their staff directories. So it's a little bit more in the weeds of searching to locate those types of people. In our experience with, website bios may or may not have a lot of information on them for those types of roles. But one of the places that we have posted in the past and had some luck is there's two job boards. One's called iHire and one's called School Spring. And a lot of the time those niche job boards don't yield a ton of candidates for us, but for these particular positions, we've had some luck at iHire and School Spring. So I don't know, hopefully that helps a little bit.
Any questions on that one before we move on to the next question? Kirk, there was a question at the very end of the list that was also school related. Pre-K intervention specialists and teacher assistants and special ed teachers. Did you or Aileen have anything you wanted to throw in on that one?
I'm just looking at that
I
one.
don't know that I have anything additional. Aileen, is there anything we've learned from our recent postings? Ideas?
No, I mean, I just did a intervention position, but it was more, it was like a senior director level. I don't know if maybe people have already engaged for next year, which isn't helpful information. Yeah, I think the school people are getting out of that, or they're deciding to not work in the pre-K area. I think where people would work and have their kids in, they're just deciding to stay home, thinking that. So you're probably in competition with other places. If you think that your salaries are competitive or higher, I would post them if that's something you're able to do, just to have a quick flash of, you know, benefits or something like that, something that can put you ahead of you know, other places. We've also worked with we're tried to work with, and not successfully, but maybe now there'll be more success, some workforce places in different counties where you're trying to hire, that are trying to place people into work positions. Now, depending on how much education or background they need to have, it could be something where they're in a workforce
development
program. Yes, thank you. I couldn't get that out for some reason.
A couple things in the chat. One thing, Margaret, you might have seen here is, are there associations that teachers belong to that might be a good place to post? Have you seen that, Margaret, when you were identifying and sourcing candidates for that kind of role, those kinds of roles?
No, I don't think I have, although I have searched on some of the certifications that you need to be a teacher, and some of those are linked to some of those associations. I think that NA something, that's the 511, does a lot of the credentialing. So I haven't really found the associations themselves, but maybe some of the certifications or courses or credentialing things that they do.
Sorry, Margaret, your microphone's not quite there. So total technology fail on our part today. Sorry about that. You might want to just dial in. You might find that a better sound quality.
Would you be saying that there are not necessarily associations, but perhaps there are certifications that you might want to look? So would that be a matter of perhaps, and I'm not as familiar with this area, that's why I was just asking some questions about it. You know, how do you determine, I guess, where to go for people that have those certifications that even you perhaps source?
I guess you would look at like
Margaret,
like there's some childcare certifications that people have to have. You could look at the place, like, I think, do we have lists and stuff of Margaret would know this better, sorry, but of the types of certifications, and then I don't know if they publish that. Oh, another thing that as I'm going through this, we've also posted at local colleges that offer early childhood education as a degree or an associate's degree into their career center, and that's usually free. I don't think we've ever paid. So if you could just do it all around the area, anybody that's offering that type of education. And you might want,
well, for most positions, I know we saw a lot of, and I don't mean to jump ahead on the questions, but I know a lot of the positions people seem to be having a hard time filling are marketing positions. Is looking at the local university has been helpful for those types of roles as well?
depends on how much experience you need. If you need a lot of experience, they're probably not looking at their career center at that point.
You might catch the first 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years of somebody's career with the website. Margaret, are you back with us or gone?
There it is. Somebody posted something.
Child Development Associate credential.
I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
I know some of our clients required that, but it depends. Might be helpful.
Margaret, the question was around recruiting, specifically looking for a credential and a best practice there. Did you have a thought on that?
No, just nothing particularly special, but if there's a certain certification or licensure, then you can use that, in your search field. If you use it in the name section, a lot of people will do, their name, comma, whatever, PMP, and that can get you a nice list of people that are using the certification that you're looking for.
Are you talking about looking within LinkedIn or what, or
LinkedIn.
Google, or what are we talking about?
Well, LinkedIn, Google would do it too. If you were X-raying LinkedIn for Google, that would work.
Some of the schools might want to partner with you too, if you think you have a lot of openings, and just maybe reach out to their career center person and talk if they have a way of, I don't know, posting, or maybe not even posting, but just introduction. So some of it is just
Some
getting
of
in front of
those
people.
career centers can be more responsive than others in our
Yes.
experience. But,
You're-
I'm going to pull up the list and see which of the ones were the easiest to post to.
Your
Sometimes-
results will vary.
Sometimes even the individual professor can, recommend a student do that kind of thing as well.
Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump ahead to, because we have a whole series of questions. So if it's okay with everybody, we'll jump ahead to the next one. The next one was somebody said, I'm in a position where we don't have a recruiter and my recruiting experience is limited, and I'm sure your recruiting time is limited. So this particular question was around the idea of recruitment process outsourcing, right? Somebody had recommended it. Somebody at a larger company had suggested RPO for this individual, and they were curious if anybody else kind of in the group was trying RPO as a practice. I got to tell you, I don't see it very much, and I don't have a recommendation there. I'm curious if anyone in this organization or in this roundtable has used RPO. It tends to be a larger company service in my experience, but I'm curious if anybody at a smaller scale has tried it.
And Bob, it occurs to me, you can hire contract recruiters on a temporary basis if you just want to bring someone in for 6 months and that's their whole job. They partner with your hiring managers, they just come in and that's all they do is recruitment. And I don't know what companies do that, but I think if you look around for a contract recruiter, you can hire one on a short-term basis just to get some of the stuff done and closed.
And Bob,
Yeah.
maybe you could explain what the recruitment process outsourcing is.
Yeah, so probably all of you have my experience where you get 5 to 10 solicitations a week, calls and emails from offshore RPO kinds of companies. We'll do sourcing from, some other country to find candidates. It is astonishing the number of calls I get in the course of a week for that. And they never ever get through, and I never ever follow up, and it's just not something we're interested in doing. I just haven't seen it done. I mean, the concept in a bigger organization is that every single rec gets handled by this organization. They do some light sourcing, they run the ads, they vet the candidates down to, some shorter list for you to consider, get it in front of the hiring manager, typically to keep the work off of the HR team. And I've seen it at larger organizations, and there are some really reputable groups that do it at scale. I've just never seen it like below 500 employees. I've just never seen it done, frankly, at all, not even done well. So just curious if anybody else has, outsourced recruiting somewhere effectively that's worked. I got nothing.
My organization, we partner with staffing agencies. I don't know if you're using that word interchangeably, but we've been very successful. We're not that big of an organization. We're around 150 internals at W2. We have some contractors near shore, but that's been our only strategy this year, is to partner with big staffing agencies that are known for a specialty, whether it's a certain technology niche, finance, HR office, that's where you could probably find an extra recruiter. But that's been the most success for another strategy other than our own people.
Now, are they finding you permanent people or?
Yeah, that was my question. Yep.
A combination. Some are contractor, pure contractor roles, some are W-2, and we pay the perm placement fee.
Yeah, that would be a little different than the RPO, I think.
Got it. Yeah.
RPO
Yeah,
would tend to be one firm to do everything. Your strategy, Olivia, sounds like you get a functional expert, like this team does IT, this team does
Right.
finance, yep.
Specialized staffing. Yep. Mhm.
Thank you. That was my question. I'm at a very small company and you know, we get all those solicitations, and our mentor organization said, hey, you should look into this. And I was like, okay, I don't even know what this is. But we don't have a recruiter on staff right now, and I'm doing very light recruiting, but I'm not a recruiter. And it's like, this is not going to scale, right? We work with different temporary agencies as well, but you know, it's, you know, quality is hit or miss, right? So I'm just kind of like trying to figure out what other options are out there. And it might be that contract recruiter might be our next step. So I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, finding a firm that can send in a contract recruiter for some period of time to get you through a period of peak demand, for example.
Yeah.
the way I would probably categorize it, if you have a big company, like Bob said, like you're Lockheed Martin and you need 1,000 help desk people, RPO, that's your gig. If you need, 2 or 3 positions, you're probably not going to bring in a contract recruiter for that. I'd say probably, what would you say the threshold would be for that? Maybe 10, 20 jobs that you're trying to, because you're going to pay them like a contract for a significant period of time. It's all they're going to work on. They're not going to deal with any of the other stuff. I don't know, Bob, what would be a threshold for a contract recruiter? Like organizations, you typically have a big chunk of work they need done from what I've seen, but I don't know what that metric would be.
I mean, they're typically going to handle 10, 15 recs at a time, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to do deep sourcing, but they can do some light sourcing.
Right.
In addition to running ads, keeping the process flow. And a lot of
Yep.
what they do, frankly, is move the managers through the sequence as well.
Yep.
Hey, we sent you some candidates last Tuesday. Did you want to do something with them?
Right. You're gonna keep
Um,
things going. And then you have the temporary services for, things that you can find that you can bring in on a contract or attempt to perm or just a Band-Aid. And then there's places like ours who you say, well, I need this one person doing this one thing that I can't get done. So those are kind of the different things you can see in the market. And then there's contingent firms like ours, which they don't partner with you in a way. They're kind of in a foot race with you. So that would be the only other different type of search firm.
And so some of our clients have had some good success. Brooke, I think you mentioned sharing Kendall Nelson Job Society.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to share this hyperlink. I don't know if this is useful. They do some temporary staffing for DC organizations. Not sure.
They have a bit of a broader range than some firms, so that might be an option for you as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Brooke, you might even share Beth Cessna's information as well. She does a kind of an unusual hourly recruiting model that may work for some of you. Don't know.
That's a good point.
Sure. Yep.
So Monica, I don't think we really did much for you there.
It's
but-
okay. I think we're just gonna have to like make an investment and have a real like dedicated person at some point, because we've had anywhere from 6 to like 15 positions open at any given
It's a
point.
lot.
And, if we're gonna grow, which we are, like, this can't be sustained. And so everyone's looking to me like, well, what are we doing? And I'm like, I told you, I don't have recruiting experience. I was very explicit about that when you hired me, but let me see what I can find out. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And, if you just want to talk offline, just to take a look at the landscape of what you have opening and what you might do about it, we'd be happy to, set aside half an hour and kick that around with you. If that'd be useful.
I appreciate that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna write that down as an option. Thank you.
It really, sadly, the answer is it depends what kinds of roles you have.
Yeah.
You have 15 of the same spec, that's one kind of solution, right?
Oh,
If you
I never
have
heard this
15
thing.
completely different jobs, that's a different kind of solution, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of RPO, recruitment process outsourcing, relies on kind of a pattern recognition of we're hiring 52 engineers and 52 sales reps and 52, that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
So,
And then some things you can get temporary work, HR, finance, administrative support. But if you have something that's kind of a niche, then that gets a little more complicated.
Mhm.
all right, Aileen, the next one I think goes to you. It's around the recruiting for marketing managers.
Yeah,
into the-
so manager level in general, put anything in front of it, HR, finance, etc. They're just not responsive. And below, I think they just have a lot of more options. And so, this would go back to if you were on some of the other calls, really good advertising in terms of what they're going to learn and what their mission, all those sort of things, because they do at that career level have a lot of options and they tend to not engage. And then you have to kind of move quickly because you can assume that you're in a foot race. So if you're not getting any response, you probably need to take a look at your position overview and take a look at that. I think there was also a question in there, if I recall. Hold on, let me just pull up the question. Something about salary, maybe they're looking for too much salary. I would also look at how you're benchmarking your positions. If you're uniformly finding that people are asking for a salary above the range, then your range may be actually wrong. I've seen some salary surveys from places recently that are way off market. So you want to be sure that you're on par with market, because that'll be a non-starter for you. If you can't.
Marketing has always, correct me if I'm wrong here, Aileen, but I think marketing salary surveys always seem to be behind. Because the data that's reported in the salary benchmarking hasn't caught up with how quickly marketing has advanced. So we've always felt like they've been a little bit behind the times, even in their description. Sometimes the titles are PR manager and that kind of thing. It's not the same world anymore.
Yeah, marketing is also subdivided into multiple things now. So when you say marketing manager, it can mean a lot of different things, and different things are paid differently. So PR is not paid the same as somebody who's doing email marketing, is the same as somebody who's doing analytics and so forth. So and then communications is completely different as well. So it really depends on what type of marketing you're looking for and what kind of skill set you have is really also going to drive your salary.
If the firm you're using to do compensation benchmarking, if they haven't asked you about 52 new questions this year, consider huddling with them. They're super busy. It's going to be hard to get on their calendar to talk about anything, but the market shifted so fast, and marketing is just one area, but the job market has shifted so fast that compensation consulting is just brutally difficult right now for a lot of firms. And a lot of the surveys, some are just like almost to the point of irrelevancy. They've been doing the same thing the same way on some of these surveys, and some of them are just a complete outlier. If you look at 5 surveys for the same exact job title, one of them can be just wildly off. So depending on where you're getting your data and depending on where your comp consultant's getting their data, you could be thinking you're doing the right thing, but you can unknowingly be just really off the market. And we didn't see as much of that a year ago, 2 years ago, as we see today. Sometimes some of our clients, I'm not going to name names, of course, but some of our clients are getting some really bad advice from, what I thought were really reputable firms, that maybe they just haven't changed their methodology, or their data's not current, or something. And so if you're seeing a pattern of people leaving for money, take a look at how you get your compensation consulting work done.
The only other thing too, I would say about marketing managers and I don't know if this is for a nonprofit or a for-profit, and marketing is one that transcends you can skip across nonprofits and for-profits, but a marketing manager and a for-profit, fairly large, I'm going to say over 100, 200 staff, is going to be the equivalent salary of a nonprofit or close. It's going to come pretty darn close to a director level at a nonprofit. Because again, there's a revenue, like what are they, they're tied to revenue, not necessarily, they're going to be tied to revenue in nonprofit, but in a different way. So if you pull a marketing manager out of a for-profit place around here, I don't know if you're all in the DC area, and then you compare that to a nonprofit, it's pretty darn close to a salary of a director if they're in a for-profit.
It really comes down to return on investment in a for-profit organization.
Yeah.
The return on investment of a marketing person, you can usually measure it in dollars. If you're in a nonprofit or a different kind of a setting, an association, there's a different kind of an impact that could be member satisfaction, or it could be, a variety of other things other than hard cold cash, right? So that return on investment of marketing knowledge to payback, if you will. Again, there's a lot of subtleties to how to do the compensation work and what your core values are and what your compensation philosophy is, and what kind of turnover you're experiencing, and all of these things should be factored in to what your comp consultant is telling you. But if they're not asking you about turnover, if they're not asking you about who you're competing with for talent, the comparator organizations that you're competing with for the same kinds of people, they could unwittingly be having you fall behind using a methodology that could have been appropriate 3 years ago and is just wildly out of date for this market.
The other thought I had with postings for competitive jobs like this, where there's a lot of marketing managers in the market and you have a lot of competition with other employers, would be to really emphasize on your postings any benefits that you have, whether that's medical insurance. It sounds kind of basic, but actually the algorithms like Google career page, it pulls that out and puts it at the top, that they offer dental insurance. And so anything you can put in there about your benefits might help your SEO rankings for postings. So whether you can offer flexible schedules or, different insurance benefits or anything like that, I would say put that in your posting for any jobs that you have. If you offer any hybrid schedules or remote work, that obviously will increase your response rates tenfold if you put that in there.
And this is where Aileen and I like to publicly fight about whether to post salary or not. You want to jump in there, Aileen?
If you can and you think it's worth it, you probably should. A lot of people, it's a highly valuable DEI kind of messaging, if you will. People feel like you're being forthcoming. If your salary's maybe even slightly above market, you might pull in some people that maybe you didn't before. But salary is a big mystery to people. They don't really know what you're offering. And so, it doesn't tell the whole story. So that's, the issue that we always have. There's usually a range. Where do you fall in the range? You need to be sure that you understand how that works, what your salary bands are, what sort of benefits you offer. But we have found when we post salary, it does tend to, we don't know. We don't know the people that didn't apply, right? Or didn't engage. But it seems like it works. If other things aren't working, we kind of throw a salary out there if we think it's competitive, and it tends to engage people.
If you're not sure what to pay, you can leave it off until you're getting a sense of the job market, right? If you're sure and you know what your range is, you could post it. We've gone both ways. We continue to go both ways. We sometimes start with one approach and then pivot to another approach, right? We're still very much experimenting with how to do that. And we've had lots of clients who ask us to post salary, and we did. And they said, where are all the people who have XYZ credential? And we say, they were above the range, saw your range and said, no thanks, right?
Yeah, I mean, and if you
So-
have and if you have a specific range and you can't go over it, it might help with getting out the clutter. If, you know, if you're one person and you're trying to do recruiting and your other job, and it may help, you know, so you're not spending a lot of time with people that you can't afford. So in that regard, I think it's also helpful. And then to Bob, you said something, I don't want to walk past it. We're always revisiting our postings, our messages, our outreach messages. If you're not getting a response, you got to change something. You know, it might be your title's too specific, or you've left something valuable off, or it's not interesting, or it's buried. When we look at, like, people aren't responding to our outreach, the people that we're directly contacting, we look at the message we're sending them. Is it too long? They're probably looking at it on their phone. So you want to make adjustments into how you're reaching out. Because there are people out there and they are looking for positions. They have to be able, if you're just only posting, they have to be able to find you, and it has to be interesting, and it has to engage with them right away.
The quick and dirty tip there is, let's say you're looking for a Drupal developer and you're not getting any traction. Well, go look for that job title and look at your job relative to the 10 other people who are posting looking for the same thing, and say, is mine meaningfully different? Does it draw out any reason why somebody would pick mine over the other 10 jobs that look exactly the same, right? Sometimes when you change a job description, you might just take the second paragraph and make it the first, or take the about us for the organization and drop it down and lead with what is specific to the job. Or if your mission's really cool, lead with the mission. So it may just be changing paragraph order, tweaking title, in the title adding things like fully remote, could be choosing to post salary or not. These are variables you could consider doing that don't take a ton of effort to mix and match on your ads. Does that make sense? All right, ripping along to the next question.
Wait, Bob, there's a question.
There's a question in the chat. Yeah, about part-time bookkeeping, finance support. Would that be CLA? Is that one of them? What are some of the firms
CLA would
we've
be a
seen our
good place to
clients
go.
work with?
Yep.
So Clifton Larson Allen is one of the reputable firms. But we have clients who use other ones.
Yeah, can you put in
Okay.
CLA and Snyder Cone in there? You're I don't know what accounting firm you use for, you know, your accounting firm may be able to offer some of those services, depending. Not
There's
all of them.
Marcom too, I think, and
Yeah.
Cone Resnick. And what about the place that Julian used to work at?
Justin Bradley.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know if they do bookkeeping.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'll put all those in the chat.
There's your part-time controller. Yeah, there's a bunch of places, I think, where you can get some outsourced or temporary. Some of them might want to engage.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah,
agree.
so.
All right, next question is, I'm looking for a free or low cost applicant tracking system for a company of 150. Right now I'm posting to too many sites and I want to make things simpler. I'm a huge fan of the process improvement you get with an ATS. We happen to use iSIMS. I personally feel like it's too expensive, like 15 grand a year for 10 people. So I don't know what the pricing looks like depending on how you would use an ATS. So that does not qualify as free or low cost. It is robust. It's uptime, like it's online all the time. Like it doesn't crash much. Maybe when they do updates, but what are you going to do with software as a service? Does anybody else have an ATS that they use that gives them the productivity advantages without the heavy cost?
My firm's actually shopping for a new one because we're so disappointed with ours. So we're leaning greenhouse.
You're leading what?
Greenhouse, leaning greenhouse. Yeah. It seems to be, from all the demos we've done, it seems to be the biggest and the best, the most capabilities.
In pricing?
Very expensive. It's probably going to be 25 to 30,000 a year. But at the
Wow.
point my firm is at, it's going to be worth every penny. That's kind of how desperate we are.
Well, yeah, if you that's what you'd pay in a salary for someone to manage that stuff. So, well, you probably pay more.
Yeah.
Some of them are integrated into the HRIS systems, I think. And then what are some of the other big ones? There's Silk Road, Open Hire. There's another big one that I see all the time.
Paycor is one of the biggest,
Yeah.
but it was previously Newton, if you all
Okay.
knew it by that name. There's
Right.
Jazz, which is pretty popular, Bullhorn.
Oh yeah, Bullhorn. Yep.
Mm.
Taleo, is that still around, or is that
Yes,
dating
it is.
me?
We've taken like 5 demos with Taleo and never found it. We always found it a little bit cumbersome.
Don't like Taleo at
We
all.
actually, if a firm has the money to do this, we also bought the biggest package on LinkedIn where you get parking spots, as they call it, for jobs, and your whole dashboard transforms. Your company's getting followers. That is about 50,000 a year. We have purchased it. We have seen 2,000 followers added on to my firm in just a few weeks. So it is
Wow.
getting traffic.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but it's very costly. So this is going to be our experiment to see, is it worth it? And I will report back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like your organization's investing in your hiring for sure.
Yes, we're trying to become different from others in the market.
Anything else on that, or should we jump ahead?
I think somebody else had.
Tim Martin had a comment. Bob, it sounds like what you might have heard from your colleague about accountants being hard to find.
Yes.
She's
Oh.
the HR director, public accounting firm, accountants and bookkeepers of any kind are hard to come by.
I was in a meeting with a partner at a big firm. I'll leave them nameless. They said for certain kinds of career levels, fine, recruiting is the same as it's always been. But at like the senior accountant level, I think is what they said, they're like, it was like the rapture. Like they all went to heaven, like where'd they all go? Right? I haven't heard this market described in that way before, but there are like these weird gaps of you just can't get at certain kinds of candidate pools, and like where did they go? But I'm not sure I have the answer for that. But there are these things where people either chose, and it could be like in the pre-K that we talked about earlier, right? Early childhood. Maybe they just chose to not be in the workplace. Maybe they chose other things. Maybe they went to a fully remote and they're working in a different market entirely, not the DC market, right? But yeah, all over the job market, you see these like, where'd all these people go? There used to be 1 million of them, right? So I'm not sure, was there something else, Brooke, that you intended to say that was actually useful in there, or just the rapture?
Just that we have seen that in our experience as well.
So, not to introduce a religious overtone to the conversation. All right, jumping ahead to the next question. Trying to fill a maintenance position, a manager position, and a marketing position, and the challenge are getting people to actually show up for the interview. So we got a couple of quick thoughts on that one for you. I mean, look, I think I've said this in a previous session we've had, that candidates have this newfound power, and it's like teenage drivers with the newfound power, right? Some do well with it, some do not. Some people choose to ghost an employer just because either they're not sure what to say when they drop out, or they just don't care, or they don't feel like they have any obligation to you to engage, even though you've engaged with them. In fairness, employers have done that to candidates in the past and their career background. So sometimes it's just they think it's payback, but to you it feels a little personal, right? To just be ghosted. But yeah, there is definitely a rise in people dropping out in a variety of ways, with notice, without notice, staying with their current employer, going to a different place. But the amount of people who don't, follow the process through, there's just a lot more people not following through the whole process because they feel like they can get a better offer. I mean, I had several candidates drop out of a CEO search we're running, and we thought we had a nice pool of 12 people, and 3 partway in before even first interview said, I could do better, right, at the CEO level. So we're seeing it now. They all told me, nobody ghosted, but we're seeing people drop out of all kinds of interview sequences.
Yeah.
Eileen, you had some thoughts on this too.
I was gonna say, yeah, at least almost daily I get somebody who's removing themselves from consideration. So I think a couple things there, you know, get them on your calendar, get them quick, follow up, confirm appointments. You know, you can, in your Outlook, you can create, I'm sure you guys know how to do this, but like a quick, what is it called? A quick tip or something, where you can just have something that's quick step that's already plug and play. Just, hey, looking forward to talking with you. Just fill in the date, send it. So engagement, I often, candidates will say to me, like, you know, I'm not hearing from the other place. You've kept me up to date. Like, they really appreciate the interaction. And then you just have to build, and I know this is going to sound like, well, you know, of course, Aileen, and this is what we're trying to, bigger candidate pools, keep people around. If you're kind of even iffy, get them through a couple of rounds before you want to turn them away. We're building candidate pools that are much larger if we can, because you need a backup to the backup to the backup. All qualified. Don't stop the rigor, you know, follow your process, but try to do it in a timely manner, and try to do it, you know, that two-way communication respectfully. I've talked to candidates, they don't know what salary range is. They're like in a second round, they don't have answers to questions they don't feel comfortable asking. So just keeping people informed and up to date, I think, is super important. That whole engagement process from the minute they apply till the minute you decide you're not moving forward. And, you know, an ATS, whoever's looking at ATS, you know, will help you send your declines. You know, there is Glassdoor, there are reputations. If people are applying, you want to let them know where they stand, because you will get a reputation out there of being unresponsive. And all of this is just anything you can do to build your reputation positively will help with all of this. Very small, easy steps.
A couple of quick things. If you can pre-schedule your managers for interview times, right, earlier in the search, and tell candidates, I expect to get back to you at X timeline. So what we try to do is project schedule all this stuff and say, this decision is going to be made in this window. I'll get back to you either way, full transparency, right? And let people know step by step, like, here's what's next and here's when I can get back to you. I know it's troublesome with hiring managers who don't always follow those rules, but the more you can be clear about what the steps are, the more you can shorten the gaps between steps, right? And just be clear and transparent. We get a ridiculous number of thank you notes from candidates saying, I know I wasn't selected, but thanks for being transparent through the process, right? Because they feel like not all hiring practices look like that. And it builds a lot of goodwill. Now, some people are still going to ghost you, but the more people know what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, the less likely they are to ghost. But hey, ghosting is 2, 3, 4 times higher than it used to be. So not much you can do even.
And our calendar scheduling tool sends a reminder 24 hours in advance, and we ask them, hey, if you can't make it, please reschedule, kind of. So I think that day before reminder might help, but obviously putting in a new system is not something any of you have time for right now.
But Bookings is free with 365, isn't it?
With the Microsoft. Mm-hmm.
Bookings is the tool we use, and we're already paying for it with all the other Microsoft stuff. So it might be the tool that, you know, shows your calendar, and it takes a lot of the logistics burden off of you for no more than what you pay now for Microsoft.
It's very similar to Calendly for anyone who's using that. It's just that kind of sort of online scheduling tool.
We used to have literally a full-time staff member who did nothing but interview scheduling, and then we tried out Bookings, and we said, I wonder what people will pick, a human being or the automated tool, and everybody picked the automated tool.
Is that included in Microsoft Suite, or is that an add-on? It's included?
I think it's free.
It's included, but you might have to enable it.
Okay.
It's not automatically added to your profile, but you can go into the admin side and add it. It takes a little bit of tweaking to get it set up. I'm not going to say it's the most intuitive tool, but it works for us now that we've gotten it down.
But if you're thinking about it, you want to talk to Brooke, you can set up some time and she can give
Happy
you like.
to talk to it. Yep.
So what's the phrase? Ask your IT administrator.
Right, exactly.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, I guess I've watched too many drug ads. Okay. So keep the rigor, don't skip steps, but try to squeeze out the gaps between steps and try to be transparent, and that will reduce ghosting,
And responsive.
not eliminate. Yeah, but it's still going to happen. In our experience, it's still going to happen. We haven't fixed it yet. We're working on it, but we're not there.
I know we talk about this each time, but I wanted to see if it was any different. Are you finding, because definitely a question that we see a lot and people are asking about, where do I find candidates? Are you finding them? I know LinkedIn has always been a huge place to locate them. Have you found, is any of that changing? Or is it still the LinkedIn, Indeed, those types of places?
There's this magical person called Margaret on this call in a secure undisclosed location. Margaret, you wanna take that one?
I'd say LinkedIn is still my primary place to find people. I mean, that's still it. But I have found, as we're trying to build up bigger, a bigger slate and more outreach, I'm having to be a little more creative and, find, conferences or members of something that's relevant. Maybe I don't use one or two of my tools. I use all four of them to see if I can find different people. But, the LinkedIn profile, I think, is still the number one.
Yeah, and for posting too, we've had the most response rates of the most closely aligned candidates from LinkedIn. We just renewed our ASAE contract and some other job boards as well, but we don't find huge numbers with most of those boards. LinkedIn, it's really been a big one. And Indeed's been pretty consistent for, 10 years for us, but I think LinkedIn has grown the most in the way that they identify and put the job in front of candidates. They help you to find candidates that are more qualified. We had a CEO position we were running where it pushed the ad to the current CEO. He said, "Hey, I think I might apply." It's reading their profiles to try to find people that might be qualified.
And again, they have to live on LinkedIn. So the pre-K teachers do not. So you will not find them there. And so that would not be a useful place by and large. Not totally, but that's been our experience.
Margaret,
Tim, your point makes a lot of sense about LinkedIn works better in bigger job markets, but maybe not as smaller, more rural areas. That makes a lot of sense.
True. And it works really well in the Washington, D.C. area because we're a networking town. Like even some of the larger areas people aren't as highly networked just because it's just a different type of town, if you will. But it's good for the DC market if you happen to be here.
Margaret, you've worked with a couple of different tools in addition to LinkedIn, like Hire Tool and some of those other things. Can you give just a quick preview of some of the tools you've worked with and what they were useful for?
So Hire Tool is called Hire Easy now, and I really like that one because it's good with the diversity. It's also good where you can make a list of organizations that you're looking at and then search from within those organizations. So that helps us a lot since we're often looking at associations, societies, nonprofits.
Margaret, I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit there at the beginning. Can you rewind that?
Okay.
What was the tool?
It used to be called Hire Tool, but now it's called Hire Easy. But it's the same tool. So
I just put it in the chat.
Okay. That's kind of the one I go to after LinkedIn Recruiter. Another good one is Socialist, and that one is very simple, and it's just $49 a month for as long as you're subscribed. You can cancel anytime, so you don't get locked in. And that one's very exact on things like job title and organization, but unfortunately, it's not that good at location. So sometimes you have to kind of go through your results and make sure you're in the right market.
Brooke, you're going to drop that one in there too.
Yep. And that's those are the main ones. Those are the best ones for scooping up a bigger, of course, LinkedIn Recruiter, scooping up a good number of candidates.
And for some kinds of jobs, you can work back from like who received government funding for a similar kind of thing, or you can work back from who published materials. You can work back from a variety of different, depending on the nature of the job, right?
Right.
You can go to a broader setup. tools. Yep.
Yep.
Bert, do you have a recollection of what Hire Easy costs at this point?
Oh, I think it's $7,000 per user per year. They just increased their rates for our new renewal. So I think we're up to 7,500 now or something like that.
I think that was the preset list of questions, PJ. I'm not sure if we missed anything or if you all have come up with some new questions. Sorry to rush through that, but we wanted to get through that list in the time allotted. Was there anything else people wanted to know or chat about, or this wasn't quite as interactive as we hoped in terms of giving you all a chance to share wisdom with each other. So.
I definitely do think all of the questions that everybody submitted ahead of time was great. It certainly gave us an opportunity to try to identify what we thought would be helpful for all of you. I would say certainly probably one of the more important things is to know that you're not alone in doing this. As you've heard from Bob and Brooke and Aileen and Margaret, they're dealing with all the same things, and it doesn't seem to matter industry-wide, size organization. We're all dealing with a lot of the same challenges. Yes, the larger organizations perhaps can pay a little bit more, but it doesn't mean that they're not seeing sometimes the same turnover. And it is a challenge when you've got budgets that you have to work within, and you feel as though you're paying market and what am I not doing? So hopefully a lot of the things that we've talked about today have been helpful to try to make a difference in what it is you're doing. And certainly feel free, as you guys have other questions, to reach out. But I will stop talking to see if anyone else has any other questions before we end for today.
Hello.
Hey, India.
Hi. I had a quick question. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I was listening the entire time. But I am having a hard time communicating the challenges with leadership when it comes to filling the different roles and how long it's taking to, meet the demands of the department. Staff, they're overworked. What are y'all doing over there in recruiting? Why isn't this process going faster? So what are some of your advice as far as how do you communicate the either lack of applicants or just the process as far as it's very slow right now?
Got a couple of thoughts on that. I'm kind of curious for wisdom of the crowd of how you all have done that internally with your teams. I'm happy to share what we do in that regard along the way, but
I think being transparent with your leadership and involving them in stand-ups would be your best bet, to have them weekly with you in a meeting for a status check, sharing how many candidates have applied, how many were qualified, give them data to actually see a story of what's happening, I think would be a good strategy that we do. So
Super helpful.
I think data goes a really long way, right? So the thing that we often share with clients is, something in the category of in 2019, I could reach out to 150 people and build a candidate pool of about 30 of this skill profile, right? Now we have to reach out to 250 people to build a similar pool, and it evaporates twice as fast, they get out of their jobs and go do other things, the market shifted. And the hard thing to tell senior leadership, I think, for all of us, is your job's not as attractive as you think it is relative to people's other options, right? That's a hard story to tell, and the only way to tell it is with data, right? We used to get, 8% engagement on whether it's an ad or reaching out or whatever, and now we're getting 4%, right? So we're in just a different, people have different external choices. You might even show them, here are the 10 other employers looking for the same skill, Drupal developer, right? What do we have that's more compelling than what they have? And sometimes engaging them in these kinds of questions, right? I've done X, Y, and Z. I used to post 2 places, now I post 4 places. I used to get X results, now I get Y results. you know, do you have suggestions? And often when you engage them in that way, you'll find that they're like, oh, that looks hard. And you're like, well, yeah.
Yeah, and like what we do each week with our clients is we'll send them just a quick, reached out to 250 people, 45 people applied. We've interviewed 12, there's 4 more people on deck, basically 3 we're trying to get scheduled, this many people we think are viable. And just so the raw data, we've even gone this past week, my colleague who's not on today, we were like, why, we're not really getting a lot of attention to this one role. So we put in like the title, basic title, and there was like 6,000 jobs with that title. I'm like, well, there you go. So how do we do, so just data, but like, if you can just get a standard, like these are the metrics I want to track, and just have someone look each week like, oh, well, we reached out to, if you're doing outreach and sourcing, 50 people, oh, 3 people applied. Well, that tells a story of the 3 people that you talked to. None of them were qualified, because I think in the absence of candidates, people think you're doing nothing, right? And you're scrambling, and you're like, you will even say, we changed the title, we changed the ad, back to what I was saying initially. If you're not getting a response, just don't keep doing it. Look at what, who's your competition? What are they talking about? Is it too long? Is it too short? Is it have everything we can offer? Is it what that group of people want to see? Different groups of people want to see different things on positions. But the data, if you just get some metrics that you always want to track, then you can just say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the effort, but the outcome is not there.
And so you might treat it like a marketing campaign where you're always
Yes.
experimenting, right?
Yeah.
An A message and a B message, right? And you vary the message. So
Yeah.
you might even do things like, could we lessen to a bachelor's instead of a master's degree? Could we shift from, hybrid to fully remote? Could we shift from A to B? And kind of give people those kinds of choices to engage along the way of, I'm guessing I could expand the candidate pool if we change these variables, right?
Well, the other thing is if you're under market salary, under market benefits, if you're so if you're not competitive, or the hiring manager has developed a position that doesn't quite frankly exist. I know if I go to Margaret and I say, go find these 5 things, this is what and she can't find it, they made it up. And so, it's not always the recruiting fault, right? If you can't recruit, if you don't pay the market, you can't recruit for something that doesn't exist. So I think communication, again, get your metrics, get your data together, get your I went looking for this. Nobody has this set of skills. We need to rethink. And I know that sounds like more work, but having to hire something that doesn't exist is just, it's never going to happen. Right. So have them be partners in the failure. Like, hey, you created
well, it's really
not the failure, but you know what I mean.
Like you said, you wanted 5 things. If we made it these 4, there are more people who have those 4.
Right.
Go to these 3, there's even more people.
Right.
You have a reason you wanted those 5 things. Where is there a little give in that?
Yes.
Right.
That's where the gold is.
I know we only have 1 more minute. There's another question in the chat related from Kim about how to get senior management on board that hiring's rough right now, and so you might want to consider non-traditional candidates. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's back to the data and what Bob said. How else can we make this work? Like, this is what's available on the market. What can we support? What can we train? What are the must-haves? And because they usually want, a million things, and what they really need is maybe 3. So getting to the core.
And when you debrief after an interview, for example, the questions would be, what are this person's strengths and what support would they need to be successful? And sometimes you could look at that and say, oh, okay, they don't have that thing I wanted, but I can support that with training or some other team, or we can still make them successful. This person just might need more, organizational support in some way to be successful. So that can be a way to begin to think about the non-traditional, or the person who isn't everything on the laundry list.
Right. Like, do they have to have QuickBooks, or could they have something similar and you train them on QuickBooks? That's an easy thing to do. Send them out for the training for whatever the database is that you use, and then the world opens up in terms of being able to consider a lot more candidates.
Sometimes it's
So I would-
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so I would urge getting your senior management or your hiring people involved in how they can help the recruitment better. It's not like just your not that anybody said this, but it's not just your problem. It's like it could be a company-wide problem if your salary's under market. It could be a hiring or a job design problem. It could be a title problem. There's a lot of different things that it could be. So bring in the people that you need to create, help you solve the problem, because sometimes it's out of your hand.
It's definitely a change for all of us we've got to rethink how we do it and the
Yeah.
best way to do that. Thank you guys so much, everybody, for joining us today, and those that'll have an opportunity to see the recording. Staffing advisors, thank you so much for all of your ideas, thoughts, and support. We certainly do appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us. Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
PJ. Thank you.